The Traitors Series 3 has now finished, and so it is time to rank every series of the Traitors against each other to find out which series is the best. Series 1, Series 2, or Series 3. Let's get into it, but before we go any further, please make sure that you click that red subscribe button down below and have your notifications turned on. So for this versus video, we are going to be ranking all of the three series against each other in different categories. If you want to skip ahead to a certain category, there'll be video chapters down below in the description. And just before we get started, obviously in Series 1, everything was brand new, so we didn't know what to expect, and so therefore there might be slight bias against certain things because in Series 2 and Series 3, we knew more of what to expect, whereas everything was a surprise in Series 1. So we're going to keep that in mind when we are ranking, but to start with, the first category is, of course, the biggest betrayals. The Traitors is full of betrayals, and that is why I love this show. Series 1 introduced the concept of certain betrayals, especially traitor versus against traitor. I remember being on the edge of my seat when I first saw Wilf turn against Alyssa and be the first traitor to ever turn against another traitor. It was incredible to watch, and he switched up the gameplay. It was amazing. Then later on in that series, we of course had Kieran trying to turn on Wilf in the finale, which of course gave insight into that Wilf was a traitor that led the Faithfuls to win. In Series 2, we of course had Harry versus Paul, which was an incredible betrayal, where we thought they were this massive team, but Paul was so cocky, he thought he was the ringleader, but in fact, Harry was 3 steps ahead of him at all time, and when Harry decided to turn on Paul and Paul gave that massive bow, it was so iconic. However, the other traitors in Series 2 were quite easy to get rid of. Ash was very easy to get rid of as she wasn't a good traitor. Miles was very easy to get rid of as Claudia had told everyone that Diane had drank a drink, so they all knew that Miles was going to be the traitor. And Ross, bless him, tried to come in to betray the other traitors to get revenge on Diane, and it didn't go very well because Andrew and Harry only brought him in to betray him. So that didn't work very well, and Andrew tried to do a Kieran on Harry, but it didn't really work. So there wasn't a huge amount of betrayals in Series 2. Series 3, however, we've had quite a lot of betrayals. For starters, the sisterhood being broken up by Mina betraying on Armani after Armani gave her this massive speech about how she should be doing more. That was a great betrayal.
I do feel like you both could be a little bit more assertive.
Mina then betraying Linda in the round table, but in fairness, Linda did know that and she wanted the sisterhood to remain alive. But then the biggest betrayal of all was Charlotte coming in, betraying Mina, being the first recruited traitor to ever take over all previous traitors and be the sole new traitor, breaking up that sisterhood. That was a massive betrayal. She then hired in Freddie to then betray him in less than 24 hours. And let's not forget her absolute betrayal of friendship towards Frankie when she revealed to Frankie that she was a traitor and not a faithful. Charlotte basically is the entire betrayal category. And so for that reason, I think Series 3 wins this one. Next, we've got the missions. They take up the bulk of most episodes and so therefore have to be entertaining for us to care about them. Unfortunately, Series 1, since it was a brand new show, I actually thought the missions were quite forgettable and I find it hard to remember what some of them were. I can remember the sheep farming one. I can remember the final mission, which I thought was really cool, where they were traveling along this massive lake, and I thought the red lasers one was really cool, and when Amos and Kieran returned, that was really cool, but there wasn't that many incredible standout missions. That wasn't the main point of the show. Series 2, however, the missions really ramped up. We also got the introduction of trying to get a shield during the mission as well, which made them a lot more entertaining. We of course had the iconic moments like Diane having to walk to her own funeral. I mean, you can't get any better than that. There was that really cool cabin sort of I'm a Celeb mission where the contestants had to crawl underneath secret passages and end up getting creepy crawlies over them, which was really cool. And Harry ended up getting a shield in that mission, which was really cool. And then of course there was all of the trapped different missions. I just thought the missions in Series 2 were definitely some of the highlights. Series 3, the missions were a lot more about other players, you know, dunking on who you think is the most untrustworthy, the death match, if you'd call that a mission, the human chess, where the traitors chose what type of personality people were in the game. And so I think Series 3 had really interesting missions in how they correlated to the round table later that evening. But in terms of the scale of missions, even the finale mission of them just hanging off a helicopter wasn't that amazing. I do think Series 2 has to win on the missions purely for how grand everything was. The next category is is twists. This show loves a good twist, and that is what keeps me on the edge of my seat. Series 1 had quite a few twists. We of course had Amos and Kieran being sent home after they had to line up before they could even enter the castle, and then returning later on as surprise guests. That was an amazing twist, and we'd never had anything like that before. We of course had the reveal of Alex and Tom being girlfriend and boyfriend, and it being hilarious how that reacted in the breakfast room, where we got Hannah getting really annoyed. We got Maddie feeling sorry for Matt because she thought Matt was going to date Alex.
I thought you were going to get with Alex.
And Tom just keep on digging and digging himself a hole was brilliant.
Alex isn't a traitor, straight up. She's my girlfriend.
And of course we have the twist of Wilf recruiting a new traitor, being Kieran. There are so many iconic twists from series 1. In series 2, there wasn't as many twists. There was of course the major Diane is Ross's mum, but apart from that, there wasn't any huge twists between the other characters. So it was a massive twist, but not enough to win this category. In series 3, we did have quite a lot of twists. We had the train carriage, where of course Fozia, Jack and Alexander had to get off the train before even coming into the castle, and then returning later with Jack never being able to enter the castle. The death match was an interesting way, because instead of someone having to drink a poisoned glass, Linda had to write it on the wall, and then it was basically up to pure chance as to who was going to die. And then of course we had the massive twist at the end of the seer, which completely changed the entire rules. However, I do think because series 1 was so new and no one really knew how to react to these twists, the twists were the most impactful in series 1. Whereas in series 3, even though there was lots of twists, we sort of knew what was coming. It wasn't as impactful. And so for that reason, I think series 1 wins this category. Next, we've got character relationships. These people are real people, of course, but they are entertaining how their relationships build together throughout this show. And so in series 1, we had the massive love triangle almost thing of Alex, Matt and Tom. Of course, Alex and Tom being secret girlfriend and boyfriend, but Matt basically thinking he has a chance with Alex. That was hilarious. We had Hannah and Wilf's friendship that was so close, and it was so emotional when Wilf had to reveal he was a traitor at the end because he couldn't let himself win over Hannah, and it was so emotional. It was brilliant. We had Maddie just hating on pretty much everyone and suspecting everyone. We had Amanda being everyone's mom, especially Theo, and we had Meryl just being so incredibly dumb but somehow still managing to win. It was hilarious. Series 2 didn't have as big of characters, but there were some still iconic relationships. We of course probably had Paul as the biggest character. He was the cocky one, he was the traitor who we all wanted to follow, and when he left it was like the big villain had gone. We of course had Diane and Ross, and Diane being basically everyone's mum, including Paul's mum, which was hilarious. And then of course we had the really emotional ending between Molly and Harry and their friendship, and how Harry actually didn't do what Wilf did and did turn on his best friend, and watching Molly have to leave the room whilst Harry just stands there awkwardly saying he's won, but he's happy to win but also sad because he sort of let Molly down, was just amazing to see. But series 3, we have had so many of these character relationships that it's just mad to think about. We of course had the two sisters, Armani and Maya, which wasn't a big reveal, so I'm not really going to class that. But we did have the sisterhood. All of the traitors were women to begin with, and that dynamic and how there were little cracks beginning to appear, such as Armani trying to take over them, of course Charlotte actually breaking up the sisterhood, was incredible. We of course had the cliquey group, as Freddie described them, which was Livy and Tyler's group, and the little drama that was created from then.
No, you just said there's
I said your little group. I just call it a group because I thought you were like...
We've got Charlotte becoming the first traitor to then hire a man, and that being Freddie, and Freddie basically losing in the end. We of course have Charlotte and Frankie's relationship, and that being so emotional, and the emotional breakdown that we saw from Frankie when Frankie realizes that Charlotte is a traitor. There were so many great relationships and characters in this series, and so for that reason I think series 3 has to win, because those relationships were really tested in the show. Because at the end of the day, the finale was just 4 faithfuls, but because they didn't trust each other, and because those relationships have been so tested, they voted out faithfuls at the end, even though they all could have won. And so for that reason, I think series 3 wins this one. The final category is iconic moments. This show is just so hilarious and has some iconic moments in it, and every series is full of them. Series 1, we've of course got Wilf pleading at the end, like we were talking about before, with his emotional goodbye moment. We have Maddie naming everyone who is a faithful and a traitor. I think I quote this one probably every single day.
Faithful, not sure, traitor.
In series 2, we had, of course, the iconic moments of Diane being Ross's mum. That entire reveal, it has been memed to death, and I still love it every time. We've got Ross breaking the fourth wall when Diane had died, and everyone being like, no, Diane was my mum, and then Ross literally winking at the camera. It was hilarious. We've got Diane attending her own funeral. To be honest, all of the iconic moments were Diane and Ross in this series. And then, of course, we've got Harry winning at the end, being the only traitor to ever win. And like I say, Molly's emotional moment. Those were all really iconic. But series 3 is full of loads of iconic moments. Let's just start off with Linda herself. So many iconic moments. I mean, you don't have to be a sailor to know how to tie a rope.
You don't have to be a sailor to know you have to tie a rope. Sorry.
Her turning her head when Claudia said traitors.
Traitors.
Her GCSE drama acting, her crying when Livy didn't come back, her saying who the hell is gonna come back.
Oh my God, who the hell is not going to come back?
It's so funny. Linda is just so iconic, and she's going to be remembered forever. But then we also had so many other iconic people. We had Frankie being everyone's mum. We had Alexander being just the funniest guy ever. I mean, falling into the bush, doing his singing tactic. I mean, Claudia going to the camera and saying Alexander is single is so funny.
I just said to anybody who's watching, Alexander is single.
We of course have the iconic moments of Freddie always being suspected to be a traitor but actually be a faithful. Then Charlotte tricking him into becoming a traitor to then banish him less than 24 hours after being a traitor, being the worst traitor the show has ever seen. I mean, that is really iconic. Charlotte is just iconic herself. She is an absolute villain. The way she managed to twist everything, vote out Mina, the way she managed to frame Freddie, and when Frankie sees Charlotte is a traitor and Charlotte suddenly turns into this sort of like mastermind Bond villain, it's so iconic. I absolutely love it. And of course the ending where only 2 faithfuls, even though 4 faithfuls could have won, is hilarious. And so for that reason, I think series 3 wins. And so there you have it. For me personally, series 3 is my favourite series of the Traitors, but it could all change by the time we get series 4, and after a few months maybe it will change again, because series 3 is the most recent series. What do you think about this? Do you agree with me or not? Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments, and as always, we've been here on Gated Theories. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later.